All right, hello to everyone watching this after the fact on YouTube. This is the VP Education Health question time event. With us today we have Rashika live, and we also have Fatima, who has sent us videos answering the questions that we'll be asking today. Few quick disclaimers. ROAR is not endorsing or supporting any candidates in this election. Each candidate for the position was given ample time to submit their availability, and also they were given the same questions in order to prepare. Each candidate will be asked the same questions. They will have 2 minutes to answer these questions. They may answer them. They may take as long as they want, provided they do not go over the 2 minutes. If they do so, I will stop them. Other than that, we're going to get going, essentially. So first of all, not a big question, but Rashika, tell us a little bit about yourself, sort of, well, why are you running, or not why are you running, that's the second question, but yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello everyone, my name is Rashika and I'm currently pursuing my master's in addiction studies that comes under the IOPPN. So my former master's was in psychotherapy and psychology, so I'm a qualified mental health professional, forensics professional and acupuncturist. And I sing, I dance, I paint, I write, I'm an author, I've published 3 books and my 4th book is underway for publication. I have a soul of an empath, I'm a people's person, I make friends very easily and I love helping people. So my main motto in life is helping everyone reach the best version of themselves alongside enhancing my.
Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. My name is Fatima Patel and I'm in third year pharmacology where I plan to graduate in July 2021. I've served as a student representative for 3 years where I was responsible for collecting feedback from my peers and I would work with the faculty members in order to address students' concerns. My other experiences include being a peer-assisted learning volunteer, where I would help to deliver workshops on completing assessments and university life. On top of this, I'm also an author and co-author for the student newsletter KCL Pharmacologist.
Perfect. Yeah, so moving on, just so that voters can get a little bit of a feel for why you're running. What motivated you to start your campaign?
Okay, like I just said, my main motto in life is to help everyone. So during my high school, I started a Sunday school for the underprivileged children, where I used to take free classes over the weekends. And then during my undergrad, I did a research project to help the petroleum station workers to educate them on wearing safety equipments because it's not done so properly in my country. And my management came forward to fund me for that. And then I got elected into a position in my former institution, which was exactly the same as what I would be doing if I get elected as a vice president in education health. And at KCL, I also ran the autumn elections and got elected into the UDC sustainability and as my MSc addictions course rep. So I've always held leadership roles and I have the theoretical and practical knowledge for that. And I love helping people. So the combination of all of this together, I feel perfectly motivates me to become a leader, because by being a leader I can reach out to more people, because at the moment I am reaching out a few at the personal level, but when I do become a leader I can reach out to more on a wider base. And I love working with KCL, and so thus I'm standing for this position right now.
Great. Thanks very much, Rashika. Moving on to Fatima's recorded response.
So, what motivated me to run for Vice President Education Health would be that I've spoken to a lot of students who study a health degree or are part of a faculty of health. And there seems to be a general dissatisfaction with the quality of education that they've received, both prior to the pandemic and especially during the pandemic. They feel that the university's response to the pandemic has also been extremely poor, and this has left many students feeling unsatisfied and extremely anxious. I really want to work with the university to ensure that students feel supported, that they feel that they can I guess, feel like they belong to the university and feel like they are having their concerns heard and they're having them addressed appropriately.
Great. So onto the first sort of hot button issue of the event. The Students' Union in general has come under a lot of fire over the past months, and in fact the past couple of years, essentially with students saying that it no longer lives up to the name of Students' Union, so run by and for students. So the question for you would be, in your mind, what is the role of the Students' Union?
I can really only talk about myself, but if I had to just pass a comment on the current Students' Union, I think one of the main challenges that they faced was that we are in a pandemic context and there are a lot of limitations surrounding implementing leadership. So probably that's one of the main difficulty that the Students' Union current union is facing. But in my opinion, as the name suggests, the Students' Union is a union that's a representation of the students' voices. And especially at KCL, we have a very, very big students community. And if the university had to actually sit and listen to each and every one of them, that wouldn't be possible practically. So we, the union members, are basically going to be like a bridge between the students and the university, raising the voice of students, defending their rights, making sure that the university hears and listens to what the students want, and then going back to the students and informing them of what the university is contending and establishing successful policies so that every student has the best student experience. And especially in a pandemic context, I think we, the union members, need to make sure that every student experiences the best uni life, also for the huge amount of money that they are paying. So I feel the union is a perfect representation of the students, and we need to consistently keep that in mind and work selflessly for them and not for ourselves.
Great, thanks.
So the ideal role of the student union is that they're supposed to support and represent the students throughout their time in university. And they should be having the students' best interest at heart whenever they are trying to bring about changes, both within the union itself and within the university. However, over the years, it feels like there has been a strong divide between us students and the student union itself. Students feel like they can't approach members of the student union because it can often feel very formal, or it can feel very closed off at times. And this has really taken away the human aspect of the student union, where they're supposed to make students feel comfortable and sort of listen out to what they are saying and address their concerns appropriately.
Great. Our next question was actually submitted by a fellow King's student via our Instagram poll that we ran last week. And they want to know, what is the biggest issue that you feel needs to be addressed by the incoming candidate, whoever it may be, specifically, of course, related to, education, health?
Okay, if I do get elected as the Vice President of Education Health, I think the main issue that I will have to handle is the mental health crisis dealing with the students, because the student community across the world has been affected because of the pandemic, and especially people in the UK. And I've done a lot of research recently, and I see that they're going through a big mental health crisis. So next year, considering the first year students right now, they would be going on to a second year, and it would be their first time on campus. In a good world, if the face-to-face classes resume, they would be going on to campus for the first time, even though they're on the second year of their course academically. And then there would be those students coming on from school, hoping to have a better student life, looking forward to uni life. So there would be a lot of mental health bridging that has to be done, because going back to normalcy is going to be difficult for all the students, and reminding them that this is where we were before 2020 is going to be one of the main challenges. And I feel as a psychologist, I have the needed knowledge to organize this, and beyond just the well-being weeks, I want to organize things where a community of students are actually available to help students manage their mental health in the best way.
Great, thanks very much. Moving on to the next response.
So one issue that needs to be addressed by the university would be that students are unable to access hardship funding that they need to pay for bills, or that they need to buy food, or they need to buy resources. Right now, a lot of students have lost their job because of the pandemic, and it's really had a detrimental impact on a student's mental health. They feel that student loans are not enough to cover all the costs that they have. And this has also had a really bad impact on a student's academic potential. So I think one way that this can be tackled is to introduce more hardship funding, but also have a less vigorous documentation process. You often have to provide a lot of documents in order to prove that you're struggling financially. And this has created a big barrier for students who might not have the documentation readily available, or it's something that can be very time consuming. And I really want to minimize this as much as possible so that students receive the funding that they need as quickly as they need it.
Thanks very much to you both. The next, cooperate with me. Yeah, so our next question is also from a fellow student who would like to know, they feel that, you know, in previous elections, not all the promises made by student union candidates are always fulfilled once they reach office. So how would you work to ensure that all of the promises that you've made are kept?
So when I started drafting my manifesto, I actually made a very diligent planning, and I went about from the results to the aims, because usually you work from the aim to the results, but I actually went the other way around, so that I actually put in very workable and achievable things on my manifesto. So I've clearly put in a roadmap for having every single thing on my manifesto implemented. And after knowing that this is something that can be achieved for sure was when I actually included it on my manifesto. So everyone who hasn't read my manifesto yet, please give it a read, because you'll see that every point that I've actually made is something that can be achieved within a span of 1 year if I do manage to get elected. And there are some which, if I do start the movement, can be taken up and implemented later by the future generation of students union to come. So I've actually put in a very careful planning and roadmap, and I have everything planned, and I haven't waited to see whether I actually get elected or not. But if I do get elected, I can just start work right away, because I have everything well planned and organized, and I'm very sure to implement it, because yes, I see it coming.
Great, thanks very much. Moving on to Fatima's response.
One of the issues that have previously come to light with other SU candidates would be that the promises made by them are not feasible in the time frame that they have. So I've done my research as to how I can achieve each point on my manifesto. For example, I stated that I wanted to bring students back to their clinical placements, and lab sessions. And I think one way that this can be achieved is that I can help negotiate with key staff on how many students they can supervise at one time. And we can create spaces where you can still adhere to the COVID-19 guidelines, but still have the experience that you want. And then we can set up a system where students are allocated to a specific time frame or a specific time slot in which they can attend their placement or their lab session.
Our next question is actually the last question from a fellow King's student, and it is the largest hot button issue of the event, essentially. What is your opinion on tuition rebates, or, you know, partial or full tuition refunds?
On a very realistic note, I don't think there is any chance that students are going to get a partial refund. So when there's a very huge impossibility about getting a partial refund, we don't even have to be speaking about full refund. So nonetheless, yes, I would put in my best effort to support this strike or any negotiations, but considering that it's nearly impossible, my aim is to make sure that at least the services are better made, and that the students get at least half of what they are paying for. Say I live in a student hall and I'm paying so much for so many facilities that are actually closed, and the same with the campus. So I'm an international student and I've been here for 6 months and I've barely seen campus because for most of the times the libraries have been closed. So going forward, I think one of the best things that we could do is enhance the programs and experiences rather than talking about the refund, and making better things such as the hardship funds, because these two hardship funds that are they're having a deadline in March, I have personally forwarded it to as many people as possible. So I'm looking at making the existing features better, like face-to-face classes, research, placements, and labs, so that it can suffice what students are paying for rather than actually working on a refund, which nearly looks impossible. So yeah, that's my view.
Thanks very much, Rashika.
So I'm an advocate for full tuition fee refunds for two main reasons. So the first reason would be that the quality of education during the pandemic has not matched the quality of education in previous years where students were able to attend in-person sessions. It's definitely been a lot worse, and students have felt very unsatisfied with what the university has done for them in terms of they haven't changed the curriculum that much. They haven't assisted students that well. Students feel very disconnected with their education, and it can feel as though we're not in university anymore. And on top of that, a lot of students have not been able to use the resources at King's, and the majority of our money for university does go towards funding for the resources. So I don't understand why students should be asked to pay for resources that they've never even used. If there was an offer for partial tuition fee refund, it would really depend on how much the refund would be, and if students are willing to accept it. There may be a case where the refunds would vary on a case-by-case basis.
For our last sort of big question of the day, I mean, obviously both of the candidates we have here today are campaigning for various different things, have multiple points on their manifestos. So we just wanted to know, you know, what's the thing on your manifesto that you'd be most excited to implement should you be elected?
Okay, like I formally mentioned this when we were speaking about the partial refund, I'm very excited about enhancing the student experience in a pandemic context that includes helping students make their personal and professional connections within and outside King's, because I think that's one of the main inhibiting factors that students have been talking about, that they haven't been able to network adequately because we're in a pandemic context and there are so many limitations. Enhancing research opportunities again in a pandemic context with clinical placements and more of lab experiences and increased time and study spaces. So these are the things that I'm really excited to be doing about, because these look more achievable and doable. And especially now that this is the new normal, making the best of the new normal is what I'm really excited about, and enhancing the student experience, because it's a very short-lived period. And in a good world, the pandemic may go off at one point, but the lost student life cannot come back. So making the best out of what is left is what I'm really excited to be doing about.
Great, thank you.
I think one aspect of my manifesto that I'm excited to implement will be to have greater racial diversity within the curriculum for all health degrees. I feel like in light of Black Lives Matter and tackling racism, it's a massive step in the right direction to ensure equal representation for all ethnic groups, for both within King's and also within the wider healthcare and scientific community.
Great. Yeah, then, I mean, as a last question, just as a bit of an open forum for you guys to just give, if you have anything else you want to say to the voters before they head out to the polls on Monday and before they, you know, start considering who they want as their next student officers team at King's, what would you tell voters?
The first thing that I want to tell all the voters is that please participate in the spring elections, because I think this is a very interesting experience. Voting for people, reading their manifestos, awaiting their results. So make sure you take the time out to actually do that, because it's going to take you just a few minutes max, even if you decide to make votes for all the candidates. And speaking of myself, if you haven't read it already, please spare a few seconds to read my manifesto, and I'm sure my vision and my beliefs would resonate with yours. And please shoot any questions if you have. I'll be more than happy to answer. And if you find my vision resonating with yours, make sure you pass it on to your friends, and please cast your vote. And lastly, if you've already decided to vote for another candidate for the role that I am standing for, make sure that you mark me as your second preference, because there are different stages of voting and everything counts. So yes, please vote for me if you do find my manifesto resonating with your vision. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Rashika. So on to Fatima's final response.
So one thing that I want to tell voters is that I want to help rebuild the trust between the students and those part of the student union. And it really does begin with having a good conversation and just asking questions, learning more about what other people want and also what we want for ourselves. So if you do want to get in contact with me, whether it's to discuss my campaign or if you want to just have a chat, get to know each other better, my email is fatima.patel@kcl.ac.uk. My Instagram is Fatima Patel for VPEH, and my Facebook is just Fatima Patel. I hope you guys have a great week, and I hope you guys consider me as your next Vice President Education Health.
Massive thank you to both of the candidates that we've had here today, either live or via video submission. For those of you watching on YouTube, shortened versions of the candidates' answers will be uploaded on our Instagram at a later time, hopefully before Monday. You can find us on Instagram at roar.news. But other than that, thank you very much. Have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you, Marino. Bye.